Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. I am very, very honored to have a student that I've known for many, many years who is now a professional and is in China. He's near Hong Kong. We're talking to him, Ruben Diaz Jr. He is attended university in San Bernardino, known each other now for more than, 15, 20 years now. And so doing the math here. But we're going to follow his story from where I met him as an undergraduate to the present of how he ended up in China. He's been there 10 years now in the southern part, the Cantonese part of China, and married to Coco, and has a beautiful child, Victoria. So we're going to learn about all that and his experience of leaving San Bernardino, of the comforts of his Latino home, if you will, and now all of a sudden, being part of the world, being a world citizen, and his experience of going to China. Ruben, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad we reconnected again. Thanks to you for reaching out to me. Let's go back and sort of originate when we met, how we met, some experiences that you may remember. When I was the CEO of my nonprofit, Latino Scholastic Achievement Corporation, and you were one of the students. But more than that, you were not only one of the students, but you also got to network with other students as well, that you were all working together trying to figure out how to find your way through college. Tell me about those experiences that you remember.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to have to start off by dating myself here. I graduated high school in 1998 and I joined LSAC quite immediately. And I was first generation college student, didn't really know what I was supposed to do or what I wanted to do. And this opportunity for LSAC came up in the form of a scholarship. And I remember driving out to LA and seeing all these like Latinos who were in positions of power, who were professionals, who were like, it was something that was very new to me. It's not like I had never met a Latino professional, but this was on another level. I mean, looking at the partners that you had at that time, like I believe it was ABC and Disney, among other. I believe Pepsi was there, and I was so surprised. And I'm like, wow, why is Pepsi and ABC looking into Latinos? I just had no idea the kind of impact we had, especially in Southern California. Now that I think about it, it's kind of silly to think that I didn't imagine Latinos being that important. But to be a part of LSAC and to see all these Latino professionals telling us what they did, how they did it, and giving us the inspiration to do the same was, well, inspirational to say the least. And I remember sitting there with a couple of new friends and we're just looking up at them like, wow, I had no idea. Like, this is somebody's Theo who like owns a Fortune 500 company and he's doing it big. Where I'm thinking back to my Theos, great guys, but they weren't exactly on that level. So they couldn't teach me about, reaching those heights. But LSAC really opened those doors for me. And I was so surprised. And so I've always been so grateful, blessed that I was a part of that. And it really just opened my eyes to a whole new level that I could reach someday. Kind of like when people talk about the glass ceiling, kind of had that mentality in mind. And I don't know why a lot of Latinos I know kind of grow up the same, kind of have the same ideas. And it takes something special like this to like just click you awake and be like, oh, you know what? I can do better. That was really interesting to me.
And you still network with some of the members. I mean, we were talking about Dr. Felix Zuniga and his wife, Martha, but there were others as well that I'm sure you all networked together and, started to look at each other and says, oh my God, we need to look at the world in a different way.
Yeah. Namely Dr. Felix Zuniga and Martha. Oh, they were amazing. They were fun. When I met them, they were so nice to me. And we were kind of in the same boat, but I was still very shy and I knew a lot less. And they were willing to share the information they had. They were willing to share their experiences with me. And that really opened up my eyes. I'm like, okay, cool. Like they're really nice. They did some of this stuff. I can do it too. And it was that push I needed to look into it. And then I look around the room and I saw so many other young Latinos, and we're all there posing, like belonging, like pretending like we belong there, even though we didn't really feel it yet. But now I look at my network that has grown in the, oh God, 20 something, 25 years since I started college. And I see friends that I knew through LSAC and after LSAC that I met who would later tell me, oh, I did LSAC. I'm like, oh, me too. And they're doing big things now. And it's impressive. It gives me a lot of inspiration to think like, okay, then this is what's going to happen for my brothers, my sisters, my nephews and nieces coming up. And I'm like, okay, there's hope. It's only going to get better.
Absolutely. And the reason for the nonprofit was because 97% of the Latinos are not graduating from a 4-year institution. So that's what created, that was my motivation that says, I have a basic idea how to get this straightened out. But like you say, once you graduated from college, then you have the formula to make sure that others follow in your footsteps. And then a great generation breaks out, not just one individual. So,
and I strongly believe that whatever you do, your children are destined to be better.
Oh, yes.
My mother and father are both immigrants from Jalisco, Mexico. That they came from Mexico, and they literally, my mother, I believe, had up to grade school, possibly middle school education. My dad always bragged about being first in his class in high school, but we're not really sure about that. I think he left before he even graduated high school, and they worked hard. And then they met and they got married, and then I popped out in Hollywood, and I have my master's degree. My brother, my sister, they have their master's degree. My other brother, he has his doctorate, and I'm so proud of him. Yeah, he made me look bad as the oldest one. I didn't get the doctorate, but I'm so happy for him because this is not something that I could have imagined, 25, 30 years ago when I was barely starting college. And now I'm looking at my nephews, my nieces, my daughter, and I'm, oh my God, if we did this, they're going to reach so much higher. And I'm really excited for the future, just for that, just to see where our legacies end up.
Well, let's sort of move up a little bit the timetable here. You were getting close to graduating with your bachelor's degree. What was your major, and what were your thoughts at that time in terms of what you were going to do once you graduated with your bachelor's degree?
Ever since I was young, I had it in my head that I wanted to be a teacher. It just seemed really cool, really fun to be able to impart knowledge on other people. And that moment when their eyes light up and it's like they learned it, they got it, it's a certain pride that gets stoked, inside of you. And it's like, okay, I did it. I was a part of that. When I was in university, I didn't want to just do general ed, so I wasn't sure. But I took public speaking classes, and I was so excited by them that I go, this is going to be my major. This is what I'm going to do. So I took mass media, and it improved my public speaking. I was out there making TV, mini movies, radio, just basically all kinds of different things that were in media. And I had so much fun. And I always told myself I could be just a regular teacher, or I could be a speech teacher, a debate teacher. I was part of the debate team. We had so much fun. I could be a film teacher. Like I could make a TV show with my students type of thing. And it was so much fun to think of all the possibilities. And I go, and even if, let's say I get a job in the industry, I can still teach on the side. I can be a substitute teacher. I can be a weekend teacher. I could be a summer camp teacher. All these different ideas were going through my head. But I was having so much fun in university that when I was finishing up my degree, I decided to add another one just to make sure I could stay in school longer until I figured out what I wanted. So I added public relations. So a lot of, if you can see just from my majors, I'm a people person. I love talking to people, being involved, being creative, working with others. And I figured those 2 degrees would set me straight. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. I was going to teach, maybe not in a regular setting, but I always just had that idea that I wanted to be a teacher.
So how did you end up teaching in China?
As my undergraduate years were finally ending, I was stuck in the same spot that I was a couple years before. I don't want to graduate. I don't want to, go out there and just work. It seemed horrible to get a 40-hour-a-week job and do something that I really didn't like until I was ready for it. I know it sounds kind of childish now, but I just wanted something different. And so I ran to be the university president of Cal State San Bernardino. And there was like 13 other candidates, and I ended up winning. And like it was amazing because as soon as that happened, I had a new problem. It's like, well, I have to be in school. So I started looking around for a master's program, and I found the TESOL program. That's teaching English to speakers of other languages, TESOL. And I decided, okay, this is what I'll do. My brother joined, and I met some great people in the program. In fact, I met a lot of teachers from China who came to our university just to get their master's and then come back to China to teach English.
Uh,
And I did that program. I was the university president. I finished my program. And then when I was finally done, I'm like, well, at that time, there was no doctorate at Cal State San Bernardino. Now there's an educational doctorate.
right.
Well, like we said, Dr. Felix Zuniga is one of those candidates who finally got his doctorate. And at that time, there wasn't that possibility. And I wasn't looking to go to a new university and start all over. And I joined a summer camp program at UCLA. And I was teaching English, and I was in charge of sports. And I ended up getting a bunch of kids from Foshan, China, who were telling me they really liked me. They liked my classes, and the teachers liked me. They introduced me to the owner of the school, who happened to be in LA that summer. And that's it. He sold me on it. I'm like, are you in Beijing? No. Are you in Shanghai? He's like, no. So, but we're near Hong Kong. And I said, sold. And 3 weeks later, I'm on a plane flying to China, it sort of felt like on a whim. But I figured, it's a year. I can do a year. It's not so bad. And yeah, here I am 10 years later. My mom still resents that.
So, how did your family feel when you said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go to China? I mean, it's not like they had a reference point that says, well, look, Juanito also went, or, Mary also went. All of a sudden, you're out in the bloony saying, I'm going to go to China.
When I told my parents I wanted to go to China, my dad said, Chino? Because, Chino Hills is like right next door. So that's not too far. No, that's China. And he's like, he's like, con los japonesitos? And I'm like, no, not Japan, China. My dad always made a mistake. He could never, even to this day, he tells people, I'm in China. No, I'm in Japan teaching little Chinese children. And I'm like, Dad, how does that make sense? He's like, I always forget. Never mind. So yeah, that's kind of just how it happened. It was definitely this weird moment where they couldn't believe. And even as I'm telling them, I'm like, am I really gonna go through with this? I'm like, I have to. And my dad's like, hey, do what you got to do. He's like, you got your degrees. I'm happy for you. Do what you got to do. And my mom was like, this is that weird Mexican. They disregard anything you're trying to say because they don't believe it. And she denied it. She would not accept it for at least 3 weeks that I was home. I brought home new luggage. I brought home new clothes. I had, I got a new passport. I think I had it updated, and she still wouldn't believe me. And up until the day I was leaving, she was still asking my brothers and my, where's he really going? He's going to Tijuana for the weekend, right? I'm like, no, China. And that's when she finally broke down and cried because, I was finally leaving the home. And for her, it was a big, big surprise. But the rest of my family thought it was really cool. Yeah.
Did they take you to the airport and see you off?
Actually, no. This is really funny because I ended up convincing another friend who he basically had nothing to do, had just graduated. I said, you want to go to China? He's like, yeah, sure. Just like that. And so he ended up coming with me. His mom drove him. He's like, I'll pick you up. And I said, yeah, sure. So my parents didn't have that option to drive me and take me. And we had a late flight. So it was like no big deal, right? The funny thing was my friend came, picked me up. My mother came to say goodbye, and she would move her mouth, but no words would come out. So she just starts giving me all these little pictures of Santos to take care of me. And then I'm trying to tell her, like, whatever, relax. I'll be back in a year. And then I started choking up, and I couldn't say anything. So we're there kind of just hugging, and I'm like picking up little Santito pictures. And that was it. The rest of my family was like really cool about it. They're like, well, a year, it feels like a long time, but when you come back, you'll be speaking Chinese, doing Kung Fu. So we're going to be glad to see you. And I said, okay, see you in a year. Yeah, they really thought.
Well, we talked about people around you. Now let's talk
Yeah.
about you in your head when you're sitting in the plane and you're actually finally taking off and you're saying, what have I done?
um, this is the last call. The gate is closing, and I'm sitting there holding my tickets and my passport. And am I really gonna do this? And sometimes getting through something that's difficult is just taking that first step. So I'm like, okay, let's just walk over there and see what happens. I go over there and I hand my ticket. She's like, hey, enjoy your trip. And I'm like, I guess it's happening. So I walk through, I find my seat, sit down, and this giant, this tension that I had inside of me just release. And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do now. They're closing the door, so might as well enjoy the trip. And if I don't like it, I can just stay on the plane and take the return trip back. And the
Sure.
plane takes off, and my heart is just going a mile a minute. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to this place where this Chinese lady is gonna pick me up at the airport that I knew for 2 weeks in the summer, and she's gonna pick me up, and I have a whole new life. I'm gonna have a little dorm room. I'm gonna have my class schedule set up. I'm gonna have absolutely no friends. Well, my friend was with me, but he was at a different part of the school. He was just across the street. So that kind of helped because I'm like, well, okay, there's somebody else there. But yeah, it was very surprising that once the plane took off, it wasn't in my hands not to do it anymore. So just I let out another deep breath and I relaxed and I said, you know what? Let's just go with the flow. Let's see where this ends up. And yeah, we land in Guangzhou, China. The doors open and the most incredible wave of humidity just hits me in the face. That right there was one of the moments where I really felt like I don't belong here. I'm gonna die. Like the minute I looked outside, I was just sweating and I was covered in sweat. And not because I was nervous, because it's just that humid. People don't understand just how humid it is. It's the jungle out here. It really
Mhm.
is. And even though we got rid of the jungle and all the buildings are up, it's still just so hot. In California, we have that dry heat. You walk under a tree, you can cool off. Here, you walk under the tree, the humidity coming from the earth, it's even hotter than outside. So it's something that I'm still not used to. Even 10 years later, I'm so tired. Especially, I chose one of the hottest places where it feels like summer 9 months of the year. So yeah, it's kind of like I always have that thought, like, am I gonna survive another year out here? Is what happens when I get older? Am I gonna be able to survive? It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And the smells. Every big city has their own smells. And you can be in Mexico and it's like, whoa, there's some weird smells. And you can be in parts of LA, oh, there's some weird smell. Well, yeah, in China they also have their own smells, and that took some getting used to, definitely.
So I'm assuming you spent a year without eating Mexican food.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. It took me a while to find foreign shops that would sell like tortillas, but only flour tortillas. And the meat, the chicken, the bell peppers, the onions. Okay, that's easy to. Cilantro is everywhere here, so I was like, okay, thank goodness I can make salsa at home. And they have different chiles, but still the same. It's still good. So I was making salsa. I was making fajitas quite often. Once I found where I could find the flour tortillas. Now it's a lot easier. So many more businesses that are exporting their products to China, and there's Mexican restaurants. So yeah, it was a year and a half before a small Mexican restaurant opened near me, but it wasn't authentic.
Right,
Let's just
right.
say. So it
There
was
was
kind of
their
the same
version of
stuff I
it.
was making at home. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it got me. It opened up my mind to eating a whole bunch of other different things. And the cuisine in any country is always special. The cuisine out here is world famous for some things and notorious for other things.
Hong Kong area, I remember there also.
Oh
So you
yeah.
ate a variety of everything. But one thing I remember Hong Kong, I right away found pizzas. So that worked out in my favor.
Yeah.
It's
But one thing people around the world don't realize is that you can have pizzas with chicken feet on them, or you can have pizzas with durian, which is the most god awful smelling fruit. It's like if you had athlete's foot and you dipped it in Parmesan cheese And it's just, I can't, that's even too sweet smelling to describe durian. The smell of it looks like a giant pineapple, and it is the most horrible smell ever. And they love it here. To this day, I still have friends trying to make me durian all the time. They put it on pizza. I'm like, I refuse. I refuse. But yeah, there's definitely different toppings out here. You have to be on the lookout at all times.
During the year that you committed to be there, did you have any moments when you said, I just want to leave?
Actually, no. I had so much fun. Me and my friend started meeting other foreigners in Foshan, and we started getting together and like quiz nights at a local little pizza restaurant. And we started going out to the clubs and the bars together. And we started meeting Chinese friends, which you definitely need to do that. Always meet the locals. It helps. It really does. I met some lifelong friends that I still talk to this day because I was just really excited about seeing what was out there. And everything went pretty smooth. If there was ever a time that I was nervous, well, there was one weird time. We had to go do our residence permit at the police station. So once you get your visa, you have to go to the police station quickly within 2 or 3 days and let them know, hey, I got my visa and this is where I live. So they know you're legally there and they know where you live in case they need to find you. So they say, oh, just go through the door and go to the back room and we'll take care of it. Sure. I open the door and there's a bunch of policemen with sticks. And I did not see the guy who was sitting on the floor handcuffed. And I got so nervous because I'm like, oh my God, I've been tricked. I'm going to get jumped. And no, they all smiled. They say, welcome. And they tell me to go. And as I'm walking through, I glance back and the guy on the floor is just looking really sad. I don't know. He might have been a local thief or whatever. I'm pretty sure he learned his lesson. But walking into that room with all those guys with their sticks in the air, really, I had to change my underwear almost at that point because it was, I really thought I was going to get beat down for some reason.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can understand that you were probably on eggshells all the time you were there, wondering
Sure.
what's going to happen next and what's going to occur next. Well, again, moving fast forward, you finished the year. You were ready. You could have just come home, but as we're talking here, you've been there 10 years, so obviously you didn't come home. ¿Qué pasó?
That did not happen. The final week before I was leaving, I was just saying goodbye to my friends, and I was saying goodbye. I was leaving, and then I got offered a job 2 blocks away from that primary school. I taught kids, and they were cute, they were funny, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I especially considering my master's, I like to teach learners who are actually researching and studying and asking who want to learn. Children don't always really want to learn. There are a lot of kids who I'm like, I'll never use English. I don't need it. I don't want it. So it was difficult. We're talking like 6, 7-year-olds all the way to like 10-year-olds. So when I was done with my year, I'm like, I'm going to go. But then I get an offer from the university that's 2 blocks away. And I'm like, okay, I'm living in the same town. I'm generally living on the same area. And I'd be teaching university kids. I'm like, I can't say no to that. So the day before I left, I signed the contract. The next day I left. They said, you'll be back, right? I'm like, well, you got my contract. I'll be back. They're like, cool. I went home. I stayed home for 2 weeks. And on the last 2 days before, I finally told my mom, I got another contract. She's like, for what? I'm like, to teach. She's like, where? And I go, in China. She's like, again? And she was not happy about it, but I'm like, why did you wait till now to tell me? Because I showed her my flight ticket. Like, I'm leaving in 2 more days. It's like, that's why you didn't unpack your bag. Yeah, that's why. And yeah, so I decided to come back. And I ended up teaching at that university for 4 years. I was the English professor for future teachers, future veterinarians, accountants, scientists, like engineers. I taught so many different classes of students that it was fun. It was amazing. Like I enjoyed it, and it's just every term was just a different bunch of students from 18 to like late 20s, and I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I had a really relaxed schedule. Instead of working 8 to 5, I was doing 16 hours in a week. And at one point, for a year and a half, I taught 6 hours a week, which was wonderful. I had what was known as the 5-day weekend, and it allowed me to take part-time jobs. And so I was making so much money, but I was partying like a rock star, traveling all over Southeast Asia, and I enjoyed my life for a good 5 years, where I was just I traveled and had fun, and it was lovely. And then finally, at that summer comes around where I'm going home, and I'm telling everybody, okay, I'm going home. I did my time. I got to go home. And then I met my wife. And yeah, that changed everything. That was the one that gave me the opportunity, maybe one more year. And one more year ended up to now I have a girlfriend. Now I have a wife. And now I have a daughter who's almost 3. And it's just funny. You have no idea where life is going to take you. But if you take it one step at a time, that step will take you in vastly different directions at all times.
I understand that you're doing right now in the media world in China. Tell us about that.
Yeah, oh God, I've done so many different jobs over the years that it's just funny. I was a teacher this whole time. And then a couple years ago, we decided to change. I decided to change what I was doing because I was kind of getting tired of teaching because the system is very different in China to it is back home. So I couldn't get used to the way certain things went. And I decided I want to try something different. And the jobs that I've been doing now for a couple of years is website design, mini program design, and SEO, which is search engine optimization. So with that is we write articles and we make your business, your product, your service trend higher and higher so that eventually the plan is to get you on the first page of Google. Because anybody who uses Google knows you look at the first page and your result, your answer is there. People don't look at page 77. People don't look even at page 2 most of the time. Page 1, top 3 or 4 answers, that's what you're going to go with. And if you're not on that first page, nobody's going to see you ever.
Now,
Unless they type in very specific. Yes.
Is this Google China or Google International?
Well, there's only Google, and that's it. There is no Google China. Google is banned or blocked, just like Facebook, just like all the other world apps. Because China, people say, oh, it's control. But when you have such a giant economy based on such a giant population, you want your people to spend their money to pay attention to the things that your people put out. So China has their own Google. It's Baidu. China has their own messengers, their own platforms for sales, like Taobao and Alibaba. Well, Alibaba is still worldwide, but the difference is that if you're going to spend all this money, why not spend it inside your own country? If you're going to be looking at, let's say, propaganda about anything, why don't you just stick to the propaganda in your own country? If you're going to learn about stuff, why not learn about your own country? And like they say here, 5,000 years of history. It's the Middle Kingdom because it used to be 3 kingdoms. It used to be many more kingdoms. And now it's the giant China that we know. And if they want to keep their money, if they want to keep their power, they got to keep the people here, investing in China, buying Chinese products. It's like buy the made in USA products back home. Why? Because it helps our country. Same here with China. They do it across the board. So like they might not have Facebook, but they have so many other apps that they can use. They have TikTok, but they use Douyin here, which is just TikTok in Chinese. And our job was to make you trend on Google outside of what we call the Great Firewall of China. So a lot of Chinese businesses are able to sell their products, their services, and be seen by the public around the world because their website is on servers outside of China, and it's open to the Google algorithm so that people can rank higher. And our company, we are on the first page of Google for a lot of different keywords that have to do with our business. Most namely, of course, Foshan, the name of our city. We wrote so many articles where the name Foshan is in there that we are starting to trend on the first page of Google for certain keywords from healthcare to education to business to factories, and we've been doing quite well. It's interesting. The virus, the pandemic really hurt us a lot, but it also gave us an opportunity to pivot, change what we were doing, and continue.
Wow. So did you, obviously it doesn't sound like much of what you were doing or have been done, it was planned.
Yeah, it's we have these plans in mind, and it's like, it's kind of like they say, you want to make God laugh, tell him what you plan to do, and then he changes everything on you. And that's kind of what happened. Like, we had these plans, and some of them were able to go through, and some of them just died, and then we had to pivot and change it up. And then opening up Chinese businesses to the world was really great, because people were like, oh yes, please, I need foreign customers because they'll make big orders. And but then politics, the US and China aren't exactly on the friendliest of terms, and right now there's giant taxes and tariffs, so it's really hard to get Chinese products into America. And vice versa, China is having a hard time getting American stuff because it's just expensive. And I mean, for us, that's an opportunity to pivot. Now we are doing the same services, but in reverse. We are helping foreign businesses get Chinese websites, Chinese mini programs, and get access to the Chinese market. So we do their social media for them, and on Chinese social media platforms, so that the Chinese customer, client, consumers, the population can interact with them. And it's very important that someone like the people in our company do it. Our company is called cross-border management. It's a generic name, but in China, cross-border management, Foshan, that's us. And the difference is we know what we're doing. My partner, he's from the UK. He has studied Google and the Google algorithm for years and years and years. He knows exactly how it works. And now what we're doing is we're using that same knowledge and using it on our Chinese systems. So, for example, culture is the biggest thing that will destroy your business in a foreign market. If you say or use the wrong words, pictures, people, whatever, you will destroy your image. And sometimes you can't recuperate from that. Consumers have a really good memory sometimes when it comes to how something makes them feel. Coca-Cola does a great job of making everybody feel good. They're all over the world, right? But if you do something silly like, oh God, I'll give you a terrible example. If I were to post pictures of myself as the CEO of a company and I'm wearing a green hat, people might think it's cool because it matches my green suit. But in China, wearing a green hat, it means that your wife is cheating on you. So it's an old legendary story. So if an American CEO, a foreign CEO did that, took a green hat picture and put it in China, they would be the laughing stock of China, and their company would immediately die. At that point, as a public relations officer, I would tell, you know what, just shut down, cut your losses, just get out of here. You're done. It's either that or change the name and come back a couple years later and hope nobody remembers or figures out you're the same thing. And that's the thing, is something that simple. And the language. Whew, the language is a whole nother 1 hour interview on its own. If you mess up the language, it totally changes everything you say. It can go like, for example, ma. The word ma is ma, 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 ma. I think I messed up one of the tones. But if you don't say the tone just right, it means a totally different word. Ni hao ma, ma at the end signifies it's a question. But ma, another form of ma, could be horse. So you could walk into a room, say, hi, everybody, I want you to meet my horse, when you're talking about your own mother. And then people would be like, that's highly disrespectful. You're done. And that's the way language is. Language and culture out here is very important. So you have to be very careful. That's why we tell foreign companies, don't do social media in China on your own. You're going to mess it up.
It's confusing enough for the people there because there's so many dialects and varieties.
Oh, of course.
So you need somebody to walk you through it.
There's 88, as of last year, 88 recognized languages and dialects. And the difference between a language and a dialect can be very subtle, or it can be very huge. And there's 88 of them. So I run into at least 3 or 4 every day. So it's different. It's a different world out here.
What's your advice for someone, not necessarily to go work in China, but your advice of what skills do they need to learn in college in order to succeed? If you're going to go outside of the country, in any country, or in any industry, just working on the international market, what skills should they have under their belt?
I think people don't necessarily focus on soft skills, people skills, social skills. If you get these things down pat, even not knowing the language won't hold you back from being successful. I know a ton of foreign businessmen that are out here in China. Some of them speak perfect Chinese or Cantonese even, and some of them don't, not at all, but they're successful because their strong word counts. These soft skills, these people skills, like you have to know how people are, how they react, how they run business, how they do business. There's a big difference to, for example, starting a business relationship is almost like starting a real relationship. They put the time in here. If you come to a Chinese business meeting, expect to not talk about business almost at all, because you're going to be eating a lot and drinking a lot. You're going to possibly be getting drunk and singing karaoke because they love their KTV out.
Oh yeah, that I know.
But yeah, before you even consider talking about business, all of this goes down. And if they like you, it's like, oh, yeah, he's a good party animal. Let's talk about business. It takes a while. It takes, from what I've seen, 3 to 4 weeks to establish a working relationship. And sometimes it's a lot of having lunches and dinners and late nights out at KTV. And they want to see what kind of person you are. And if they like you, they're more willing to do business with you. If you show up with them and you're trying to talk business, you're going to sound really boring, really serious. They're going to be, this guy just wants our money. And then that might kill the deal. And I've seen it. It's amazing how just knowing somebody in a social setting dictates how everything's going to go in the business setting. I totally recommend that people learn a certain set of skills, mannerisms, kind of etiquette, kind of like etiquette. Like there's a certain way people around the world react, the way they say hello to each other. Like in China, they're very, let's just say they're not as warm as, let's say, Latinos. You can meet somebody you don't know as a Latino and you'll get kisses on the cheek. You'll get a nice hug or something. Not in China. In China, it's vastly different. They don't touch a lot. They stay away from. It's not just saying they're not loving people, but you got to build to that. As a Latino, sometimes it's just a given. Like I remember going to Mexico and I would tell my friends and my cousins, introduce me to that hot girl over there, because I knew she was going to give me a kiss on the cheek. And for me, that was going to be the ultimate thing. In China, though, if you do it the wrong way, you're going to look very forward, very disrespectful, and you're going to make them uncomfortable. I met a co-teacher that's a Chinese teacher that stays with the foreign teacher in the classroom to help them translate certain things when you're teaching English. And when I met her, she knew enough to put her hand out, but I grabbed her hand, pulled her in, and gave her a kiss on the cheek. I'm like, oh, we're going to be working together. I'm so happy. She died right in front of me. She just, the color drained from her face, and she just stood there with her mouth open. She couldn't believe I had done that. And for me, this was like day 2 or 3 in China. I had no idea. Eventually, she told me, it's like, oh, don't do that to other teachers. And I'm like, what? Don't do what? So don't hug or kiss anybody. I'm like, why? She's like, we don't do that. And then I was smart enough in that moment to realize, they do things differently. Just let it go. And me and her became great friends, but it was a very awkward start to how we met.
So, and I would assume that learning the soft skills in college will transfer anywhere in the world, even in your own backyard, even in companies, because people are still dealing people to people. We're not dealing with computers all day long.
Yeah, especially with all the technology in our life, we're losing track of communicating with each other as people. I can't tell you how often I've been to lunches and dinners and everybody's on their phone. And it's just kind of sad because I'm just standing there looking around with like 1% on my phone. I'm like, I can't use my phone because I'm going to need it to call a cab to go home. Let me talk to somebody. And nobody's available to talk because everybody's on their phones. But if you work on these soft skills, if you can be they're not necessarily smooth and charming, but just be able to have a conversation with somebody and keep them interested, they're more likely to continue talking to you, as opposed to If you both sit there and play on your phone, you talk about a little bit of business, and then there's no feeling, there's no connection, and that's not going to help. That's why I always thought, even going to college, whatever your major is, doesn't necessarily dictate what you're going to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Harrison Ford was a carpenter, and then
Mm-hmm.
when he got older, mega movie star. And it's like, he didn't study. There are people who go to school and they study to be actors and singers, and they don't end up doing that sometimes. So college for me, it was always like it's a place to experience things and learn new things. And granted, you're going to focus on one, but everything I learned outside of the classroom, sometimes I say was a lot more valuable to me than what I was learning in the classroom at times.
So does that mean college is not necessary?
Oof, that's a tough one. I think college is necessary specifically for the experiences. If you go to college and all you do is focus on class and major and say, I'm going to study numbers, I'm going to be an accountant, and you get out, you're an accountant. You can do that. But if you go to college and you focus on life, you focus on learning what you got to do in class. That's why we have general ed, so you can experience the other frames of mind that are out there, not just your own. Like, you can be an accountant, but you still have to take a philosophy class, and that'll help you because it's going to shape the kind of person you are. It's going to open your mind. That critical thinking is super important. And if you don't learn these things, how to deal with people who are different from you, who think differently, who react differently, if you can't handle that, then sorry to say, the outside world's going to be a whole lot tougher.
So you can create either the open book or you can close the book on yourself and limit your own
Sure.
opportunities. But you're absolutely right.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand, why am I taking all these other courses if my major is X, Y, or Z? It's because you're going to be dealing with people around the world, and they're not all of the same caliber as you. You have to be
Sure.
able to translate each other and understand each other's emotions.
Sure.
So,
And it's something as simple as walking into somebody's office and looking on the wall, remembering my art history class. I'm like, oh, that's the Starry Night. I love that picture. And they were like, oh, you know it. And then you just start talking about art history, start talking about philosophy. By the time you get to business, it's a done deal already because they like you because you have that connection. And I think in today's technological age, we're severely lacking in that.
okay. Well, as we're ready to close the show, I mean, we could go on for hours, but we're going to close the show. I'd like to give you the opportunity to sort of closing statements. So anything we've talked about.
I would say is you're going to meet wonderful people in your life and you're going to meet not so wonderful people. It's the people you keep in your life that dictate how your life is going to end up. You make great friends and they stick with you forever. You're going to have great times, great memories, and even great opportunities. And for example, I just have to tell the story. When I was doing the Latino Scholastic Achievement, when I was doing LSAC 25 years ago, I met Dr. Felix Zuniga. And him and his wife Martha, were sitting across from me, and we were having fun. And then Armando, you went off on this speech about how we had unprofessional emails, and we were sitting at the table laughing as you read, sexy cholo and freak on a leash 69 and cholo guapo, and we're laughing. We think it's funny, and you're all, and who's Mr. Huevos? And I'm like, oh my god. Felix and Martha saw my reactions, like, which one are you? You're El Cholo. I'm like, no, I'm Huevos. They died laughing at the table. You're going through your speech, and our table's just laughing at me, and I'm bright red, and I couldn't I couldn't get past it. To this day, they still call me Huevos whenever they see me. We don't see each other that often, especially as I go home once a year or so, and it's been 4 years because of the pandemic that I don't go home. But to this day, we have that memory, and we have that friendship. And we started talking about the Lakers, and we were always talking about the Lakers, myself and Felix in particular. And to me, that's like such a wonderful memory, such a wonderful relationship. And it all started because we took a chance. We went to LSAC, we met new people, we made new friends. And you know who's going to be good in your life. You know who's going to help you, who's going to support you. And here we are, 20 something years later, and we still keep in touch. We still talk. And that's what I would recommend that everybody does. Find a way to keep your network close to you. Like, I don't mean your Facebook network where you have 1,000 friends and you only talk to two of them. I mean like your life, your daily life network, the people you talk, the people that when you do something great, those are the people you tell. The people that when you make a mistake, you ask them for advice. I think other people are the key to our own success. Because as they say, no man is an island. And if you do everything yourself, then you're going to fail by yourself, and you're going to maybe succeed by yourself. You're going to have nobody to share it with. And I really hope that people just keep that in mind. Like, let's be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think that's definitely going to help you out.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Ruben Diaz Jr. And I want to thank you, and we're going to keep in contact with each other. And we haven't talked in 20 some odd years, but it almost seemed like we picked it up. We're right where we left off. There was like no gap in between. But that's enjoyable to say. But that's very valuable advice that you're passing on to other people as well. So I can't thank you enough. I look forward to having you back on the show, and we'll continue to go into details about this. But the one thing that I walk away with is your recommendation for students at the high school and college level to build up their soft skills. Find out what they are.
Of course.
And no matter what major they're taking, no matter what courses they're taking, no matter what is, build a relationship with people that are in the classroom with you. Find positive strengths with each other, and then build upon that, because you're going to take it into your professional world, because everybody splits in different directions. But with the internet, we're no longer islands in different parts of the world.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Oh, the pleasure's all ours. And I'm sure that Felix will see this as well, and he'll laugh at everything you said as well. But the greatest thing of all is thank you very much for being on the show. And we wish you and Coco, your wife, and Victoria, your daughter, a wonderful life to continue in Hong Kong, in the area of Hong Kong, and wherever you go in the world, because it sounds like you're going to evolve to different parts of the world throughout your life as well.
Definitely going to travel, that's for sure.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to maybe when you're in the neighborhood here in Southern California, or maybe if I'm in the neighborhood, we'll stop by and say hi.
Yes, of course. If anybody wants to, come see Hong Kong or Southern China, give me a call. That's for sure. And hopefully I can go back home this year. I'm looking forward
Absolutely.
to it.
Like I said, we were there almost 4 weeks in China, traveling throughout. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Very unique. But so thank you very much for bringing back all those wonderful memories. Ruben,
Thank you.
I wish you good night. And who says you cannot talk to people in tomorrow, since you're in tomorrow?
Yeah, it's Sunday noon right here.
I know. And
Thank
we're
you very
on Saturday night here. All right.
Yeah.
Thank a lot. Okay, Ruben. Thank you very much.
Thank you.